Look, see there, I tried to tell you not to test my rage, cause you just a yellow belt and I'm a Jeskai sage. You know the deadly martial arts of the black and the white lotus. Someday I'ma be the POTUS, you'll still be a giant scrotum, and I'll be at the podium and you'll be sodium salty.
What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg. We like magic, and today we're doing a deck that's miles above the competition. That's right, this is one of the most requested decks on my Patreon. Today I'm going to give you Jeskais, aka the Bald Eagle, aka Cumulonimbus. I don't know. Now what this is a Jeskai Favorable Winds deck, and since it's right there in the title, I'll play all 4 copies of Favorable Winds because I really don't mind drawing multiples. Now we're playing 20 plus flyers in the deck, and in fact every single one of our creatures flies to take maximum advantage of Favorable Winds. Sometimes for just 2 mana this can represent anywhere between like 4 and 6 or more flying power on the board for you. So for 2 mana that's a great investment. But a Favorable Winds deck isn't actually so much about Favorable Winds as it is about the flyers that you build around it. So let's take a look at all of our creatures here, starting with 4 copies of Siren Stormtamer. I mean, if we're going to play a 1-drop flyer at all, this is probably the best one available to us in the whole format. You know, we play it turn 1, it's probably going to get a few damage in a game, especially once we get a Favorable Winds down. A 1-mana 2/2 flyer, it just kind of doesn't get any better than that. And to add to that, it can just catch bullets, you know, it can jump in front of removal. That's directed at some dudes that we'd really rather not die a little bit higher up on the curve. We're also going to play 4 copies of Stormfleet Aerialist. I still have a lot of faith in this card, man. In this deck, it's incredibly easy to get the raid off. I mean, we're literally nothing but flyers. So most turns that you play it, you're going to get the raid off on it because it's extremely easy to attack in this deck. You know what else is incredibly easy is pushing this thing's power to 3 or 4 or even more in this deck. You know, obviously you get the counter on it and you got a Winds out, you've got a 3/4 flyer. That's above things like Lightning Strike and a Braid, that's really important, but there's other tricks in this deck to push this thing's power up to like 4 or 5 sometimes, and it's one of the better attackers in the whole deck for a very, very low cost. We're going to play 3 copies of Skyship Plunderer, and note that all the creatures I've shown you so far, at least, are pirates. That's going to be a little bit more important later on down the road. So you could also say aka Skyrits is what this deck is. But there's not a whole lot of pirate action going on, but I wanted some pirates at 1 and 2 on the curve so that we'll have a payoff in a card we're playing a little bit later. But that's one reason we're playing Skyship Plunderer. There are a plethora of other reasons. First of all, it can put more counters onto Aerialists, so that's a good interaction right there. And it works with the one vehicle that we're playing in the deck, because the vehicle gives us energy. Gee, I wonder what it could be. We'll get to it a little bit later, but anyway. Skyship Plunderer also helps to give us a little bit more energy when she gets through for combat damage, so that's important. And if all else fails, it's a 2-mana, 2-power flyer that's really easy to get to 3 power, so that in and of itself is nothing to sneeze at. Plunderer is just worth playing. Now there's only a couple of red cards in the main deck, which is how I want to keep this splash. We've got a couple of red cards in the main and a red card in the sideboard. I don't want to touch red too much here because I don't want to rely on it hardly at all. But one of the main reasons I want red in the deck at all is to play Sky Terror, so we're going to do a whole playset. Sky Terror is the truth, man, because it is pretty much unblockable in this format. I don't know if you've noticed, but the best decks in this format don't really have a whole lot of flying creatures in them, like Glorybringers and Temur Energy, and there's not really a whole lot else going on in the way of flying right now. So not only does that play right into our hands, but Sky Terror takes it to a whole other level. Even if they have a flyer out, they still can't block a Terror, and it's super easy to get it to 3 or even 4 power in this deck. And once you get it to 3 or 4 power, that's a really fast clock. That's actually not the only dinosaur that we're playing in the deck. We're also going to play 4 copies of Kinjali's Sunwing. Sunwing to rule them all. This is amazing in the Ramanap Red matchup, where their big advantage is that most of their creatures have haste. So as long as you got your Sunwing down, you're cutting them off at the knees. You know, they don't get to immediately attack with Earthshaker or On-Crop Crasher or Hazaret, their best creature, you know. Just a major advantage that forces them to draw a Lightning Strike or an Braid or whatever to get rid of your Sunwing. We're essentially racing already against Mono Red aggro, and this really, really helps us win that race. We're also going to play 2 copies of Dreamcaller Siren in the deck. I really don't want to go overboard and play too many of this, but this is one of the reasons why the deck is front-loaded with little pirates. You know, you noticed 11 different pirates at the 1 and 2 drop slot. That really helps you get that second bit of Dreamcaller's text, and that's a very important bit. seriously, just the play against Glorybringer on this card makes it awesome. You tap down their Glorybringer, negate the haste, and they don't get to kill one of your dudes. That's pretty awesome, but it works against literally every other creature they might want to attack with, including hasters like Hazoret. So it's another good card in the, both in the energy matchup and the Reminap Red matchup. Again, if you can actually get this thing to go off the right way, it can be amazing. That said, last little bit about Siren here and sort of justifying why I included it in the deck. Even if you don't have a pirate out, you can still play it at the end of your opponent's turn. No harm, no foul. It's like you didn't even really spend that mana. And if they are swinging in with the flyer, you can always throw it down with hate with flash and just block that guy, So there's a lot of reasons why Dreamcaller is good, but to really maximize how good this card is, get that second bit of text during their attack step and watch it win you the game. To finish off the creatures, we're going to play 3 copies of Angel of Invention in the deck, and I went back and forth between this and Angel of Sanctions a lot, and it really depends on your local meta, what you're facing at F&M or at your lunch table, whatever's going on. You can make your own decision there, but I liked Invention a little bit more. My experience was that Angel of Invention was just a better sort of Game 1 main deck card because there's a lot more versatility on it. First of all, it's just another Anthem effect, which is really, really good with all your little flyers and stuff. That was sort of the deal breaker. I really wanted the extra Anthem effect, but it can also put a bunch of servos on the ground to help block for you while you're swinging up in the air. That's cool, can extend the game a little bit, and it has lifelink. That helps extend the game. It's good sometimes as just a big, sometimes even 5-power flyer if you've got a Winds out. With lifelink, that creates huge life swings, and that's really, really good against aggro decks. So there's a lot to like about Angel of Invention in the main. Now we're going to play just a couple of vehicles in the deck, and you probably guessed what it was earlier, but I'll go ahead and show it to you. We're going to play 2 copies of Aethersphere Harvester in here. Because why not? Another life-linking flyer will really help us out again in the aggro matchup. Note that's a pretty good freaking matchup for us. A lot of our cards are pseudo-anti-aggro. So that's an awesome match for us if you've still got Reminap Red running around at your F&Ms. Keep that in mind. Aethersphere Harvester is a big reason why we're good in that matchup. And it's got other stuff to do. Skyship Plunderer, mentioned this earlier, but it can give us more energy counters to pump into this if we want to. A 3-power flyer is good enough, but with, favorable winds and Angel of Invention, sometimes this can deal a lot of lifelink damage for you. So, pretty cheap cost and even a little bit of protection against sweepers. We get our whole board swept, and then if we play any one creature in the deck at all, they can all crew Aethersphere Harvester, we get right back on board. So, I think there's a lot of reasons to play this card. Not only is it on theme for the deck, but it's one of the best flyers in the whole format. Now, we really don't have a whole lot of room for other spells in the deck. We want to play a buttload of flyers to take advantage of Winds, and we have to play Winds. It's 4 whole slots spent on an enchantment. So we don't have a whole lot of room for other stuff, but I'm going to use all those slots on removal, starting with 4 copies of Lightning Strike. This is actually a tough decision, Do I play Lightning Strike, Abrade, or Harness Lightning? And I was fiddling around with more of an energy theme, like Whirler Virtuoso and stuff like that, Ether Hub in the mana base, but ended up not really liking it. Whirler Virtuoso felt especially clunky, so I ended up with Lightning Strike, and I couldn't be happier, actually. Because at the end of the day, this is an aggro deck at its core, and aggro sometimes needs that little bit of extra reach, We'll get them down to a respectably low life total, but then they'll sweep us or they'll kill our last couple of creatures with removal, and we really just, at that point, have to top deck the last few points of damage, and Lightning Strike goes a long way to helping us do that. And to finish off the main, I'm going to play 2 copies of Cast Out in here. This is just good against the best stuff in the format. Hazoret is a serious target, and Scarab God is a serious target. This deals with both of those and pretty much everything else in between, and stuff that's not even a creature. It's just a huge variety of stuff that a Cast Out can hit, and I think it's definitely worth 4 mana, especially at instant speed. And sometimes we'll even cycle it. We have the option to do that at least. So I think that Cast Out is actually just an amazing piece of removal. It's super splashable in this deck. I don't see why we wouldn't devote a couple of main deck slots to it because it's so versatile. It just takes care of nearly everything. Now we're going to play 24 lands in this deck, and this is where things get a little pricey. The Jeskai mana base is pretty solid, but it's also pretty expensive. Spirebluff Canal is getting to like $10 a piece now. All the other lands are like $3.50, $4 or a little bit more. So the whole mana base costs way more than the main deck, the non-land cards in the main deck. So that kind of sucks, and it pushes things into the stratosphere as far as the cost. So that kind of sucks. But if you wanted to save a lot of money, you could always play like more basics or maybe Evolving Wilds instead of Spirebluff Canal. It would bring down your speed a little bit, but it would also bring down your budget like a whole lot. So feel free to do that if you want to do it. Here's our sideboard right here, and I'd say Negate is just about the most important card in the entire sideboard. I mentioned this earlier, we really don't want to get swept in this deck. Now, the good thing is, there's not a whole lot of sweepers game one unless you're playing against blue-white approach. You know, Grixis control is all but faded, and blue-black control is the most important control deck in the format. Good thing about that is that it really doesn't play any sweepers until it gets into its board, and then it brings in Yahini's expertise. So we've got a pretty decent game one against that deck, so long as we can get on board and stay on board, but we have to worry about expertise game two. Against blue-white approach, we always have to worry about fumigate and settle the wreckage. So negate does a lot against all of those cards that are very important against us. We want to make sure they don't hit us. Dusk Dawn is great in the mid-range matchups against energy and such. They've got a fair amount of big creatures, and even if we blow away a couple of our relatively big dudes because we have a winds out or something, then we can still use Dawn to get those creatures back into our hand. That will often be worth it in that matchup. And really, we've got nearly 20 creatures that Dawn can bring back. So Dusk Dawn is fantastic against mid-range. There's also Hope of Ghirapur. That's the last card in the board we'll talk about. The Lowly Hope of Ghirapur. This is actually the other best 1-mana 1/1 flyer in the format, except for maybe Duskborn Sky Marcher, but that doesn't really help us in this deck. So Hope of Ghirapur is going to come in against control decks. It's obviously good because it can keep them from countering spells in our second main phase, but this is also good because it helps us get on the board early against control and can sometimes be a 2-power flyer really quickly, which is in and of itself good against control too. And here are your power rankings. A final score of 62 points, which ain't half bad, although the deck does get a little out of budget, mostly because of the lands. Again, you know, this deck is about $135 on TCG Player, but you can bring it well under $100 if you replace a few of the lands. So you got that going for you. And the deck is a blast to play. It turns out that flyers are amazing in this meta right now. I mentioned earlier, there's not a whole lot of flying, even in the best decks in the format, especially in the best decks in the format. There's not a whole lot of flying, and that's amazing for us because we've got like 26 flyers if you count the 2 ether spheres. So try this thing out, man. We shine against aggro. We're about 50-50 against a lot of mid-range decks, and blue-black control can be a tough matchup, but we're not necessarily guaranteed game one, but we have a good game one before they bring in Yahini's expertise. So try this thing out against some of the best decks in the format. You've got very good matchups. Now, if you wanted to bring the price tag down even more, you've got options. You know, you just drop one of the 3 colors. There's a pretty decent blue-white flyers deck in this format that doesn't cost nearly as much of this because, you know, the mana base. And the same thing with blue-red flyers. There's like a blue-red improvised flyers thing that plays like Whirler Virtuoso, PNA Lar, Maverick Thopterist, and stuff like that. And it's pretty cheap to put together too, so you've got options. But I'm tapped out for now. That's all I got for this one. Let me know how you felt about it down there in the comments section. First of all, yes, I do think it's worth playing red, but again, if it's against your budget, don't do it. So that solves that. But if you've got a bunch of other questions, you might. If I missed anything crazy or whatever, let me know down there in the comments section. I'm always interested in what you're interested in. And if you wanted to take a look at this deck list all in one place, just hit that description box down there and then click the first link. That'll take you over to TCG Player. They're my sponsor and they help me bring you content. And just clicking on the link helps out the channel, so I hope you'll do that and take a look at the deck. You can also like the video. If you enjoyed the video, sub if you're new. Make sure you hit the bell for the notifications because there's a bunch of deck techs, like a bunch of deck techs, coming up. You can also follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev or kick me $1 on Patreon at patreon.com/SBMTG. And I'm pretty sure I'm done. This felt like a pretty short deck tech. Sorry about it. I'll give you guys an end card. How about, here's an end card. See? End card. Isn't this a sweet end card? Awesome choice for the music, Dev. Anyway, I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from The Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards.